So we have about 15 minutes for some questions from the audience, but I thought I'd start by maybe talking a little bit about how the project came to be.
Well, I usually write and direct produce my own stuff, but this was, I also get sent a lot of scripts, but this was just remarkable. It's a first script, and I just had never encountered a character like this. I'd never encountered a character like this. Switch positions, okay.
Sorry about that.
Wow, that's weird to be directed. Like so.
We'll start over.
Would you prefer my angle like this? But this character I've never seen before. I've never met a character like Zev. Read in any novel a character like Zev. You think you know what he and who he is, but then you realize that you've spent an hour and a half watching someone you would never think you'd be watching a movie about. And what I found fascinating is that you think this story is about his dementia, but in fact it's about trauma. And it's about this extreme trauma that both these men, Martin Landau and him, are experiencing. Landau as a survivor of this horror. And the shocking thing is that you understand that Plummer must have also been traumatized by being a guard. I mean, that's the only possible explanation of how he's completely sublimated this memory. And that's it's possible. That does happen through selective memory and then a process over decades of repression and suppression, but it's very, very unexplored. And I found it absolutely compelling. And I knew if I had the right actors, we could make quite a unique film. I'd worked with Christopher before in a film I shot here in Alberta, or part of here, a large part, Ararat. And then I'd worked with Martin Landau 30 years ago on an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents when I was just starting, and we got along and promised we would work together again one day. And when I read this, I thought this would be perfect for Martin. And so that's how it came to pass. I mean, I was also, after the last film, The Captive, which is like, in my own work, I'm doing a lot of non-linear and structurally very adventurous attempts at telling a story, and I felt that I'd gone as far as I could with that. And when this story came, it was just so simple. It's linear. It's just A to B, and I thought I could also shoot it in a very simple style, handheld, very direct, concentrating on the performances.
And was the writer involved with you at any point?
Well, yeah. I mean, Ben's great. I mean, he's shockingly young, and his inspiration for this was he married a Vietnamese woman and went to live in Vietnam for a very long time, a few years teaching English, and came back and was stunned at the cultural amnesia in the U.S. over the Vietnam War. And couldn't imagine how people could forget about something so cataclysmic. And then told the story from his own background. He's Jewish American, and came up with this story. And I think it's really a unique script. I mean, I guess it's got some references to Memento and other stories, but I think it's really unique. And we stayed in touch. There was a lot of work to do in terms of the deployment of Max's story in the first draft. It all came out at the end, and it just felt too back heavy, and so we sort of spread it out. But it's pretty much what I read.
Is there some questions in the audience?
Yes.
Yeah, first, congratulations. It's a great movie.
Thank you.
I didn't know anything about the movie when I came in, and I thought I knew it was something about the Holocaust, so I thought I was seeing a Holocaust movie. But then at the end, I see that the person throws out the question that perhaps the memory of what someone thinks happened is more important than what actually happened. And then at the end, I almost get a message of a Holocaust denial movie. And I'm wondering, what is the message, the Holocaust message you're trying to project? Or is the Holocaust almost irrelevant? That just happens to be the event of trauma that topic is all stress and dementia. How should I be looking at this movie? Or how did you look at the movie when you made it?
Did everyone hear that? Pretty much. I mean, that's a great question. I don't. I know how I looked at the movie. I'm not. I think there's a lot of different ways of looking at this movie, and I don't think that there's any one way. But I do think that as important as his story is, we also have a person who's worked all his life with the Simon Wiesenthal Center and has been trying to do it the right way. You know, going through the court systems and trying to, seek justice through a legal means. And now, at the end of his life, or he meets this person and realizes he's never going to stand trial because of his dementia, and concocts this plan. And it talks about rage. This person is still living with rage. And what do you do with that? What do you do with that? I mean, I think a lot of movies try and tell us, well, time will heal wounds, and but that doesn't always work. And there are people who, you could see that in that last close-up of Landau. He's still feeling that this just happened. And we are living in a country, of course, where we have a federal MP who's never heard of Auschwitz. I mean, you heard this story. I mean, like 3 university degrees. I mean, how is that possible? So, so it's not just a little girl who's never heard of it. So I think that there is this process of allowing things to slip, and once we begin to abstract these horrifying events, the question becomes, well, what have we learned from them, if anything? And that's a really important message. I mean, it's really important for me as an Armenian, because it's the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, and so like to be doing this project in this particular year was incredibly meaningful for me. And there was a lot I was projecting into it, but of course, it's this notion of when things are not resolved, they tend to fester in unexpected ways. And I think the other thing I was trying to address was, the third one is the wrong house, but in fact it's the right house. That to me is also, I'm sorry, I was rushing back and I want to see what the reaction was, because the reaction in Venice was insane. Like when he gets shot, the neo-Nazi, people were just cheering, and I was going, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that. And then at the gala in Toronto, they also was more subdued, but there was still, like cheering, which was really disturbing. And then in the second screening, no one cheered, which was good. And then in Vancouver, no one cheered, which was good. So what happened here? Everyone gasped. Good. Okay. So it seems as you get further west, people have a more sane reaction, I think.
Why did the neo-Nazis cheer? We have to ask that.
Well, why do people cheer?
No, why did the neo-Nazis cheer?
No, it wasn't neo-Nazis. No, there were people. No, sorry. I hope I didn't give that. I've never shown this film to neo-Nazis, so I'm not quite sure how they. I'm not sure how they would react. But we'll save that for the second screening. You could just bring all the neo-Nazis in Calgary to see the film and find out what they think. That would be a strange screening. But it is odd. Like I've never had a moment in any of the films I've made where people are having a reaction like that, because it is so visceral. And I think the odd thing about this movie is you really feel for Zev. Of course, you're very concerned about him, and you are projecting a lot into him, and he's very frail. But he is on this mission of revenge, and you can anticipate that gun is going to be deployed at some point. And then when you find out who he is, I mean, you have to reassess everything that you were feeling about him, and you will. I mean, maybe this Q&A is happening pretty rapidly, but I mean, I think there's a lot to filter in the movie. Yes, sir.
What I was struck by was the ageism, because here he was a murderer, a terrorist in his own way, but he could wander through society and have the assistance of everybody along the way because of his age.
That's a great point. I mean, that's the thing that, you see, my belief is that Max, that plan that Max has, he never could, for a moment, think that it's going to be seen through. All he really hopes is the guy buys the gun, and somehow he's discovered with this assassination plot, and then it'll go to the media, so there'll be attention paid, because that's the only recourse he has. But the thing he doesn't anticipate is that he's going to meet all these people along the way that are so helpful, and and go out of their way to see that he gets to the next destination. And so that is one of the. I think the film, and I wasn't here for the screening, but I think there's kind of this sardonic humor in a lot of it, which is about this, as you said, these odd moments where people are extending themselves, or just the. Like when he marks "not him" on the paper, like just there's something very oddball about the nature of this journey, and which then becomes very serious, of course. Yes. My wife asked exactly the same question. That's so interesting. I mean, my wife has seen Sound of Music 45 times, is in love with Christopher Plummer in that movie, and wants any bit of memorabilia from that film, and so thought that picture had to be Von Trapp, and it's not. No, it's sorry. That's so funny. You would say that. That's like yes. Right. No. The question is about the conversations being switching from German to English, and him. No, I think legitimately he doesn't like to use the German language. I mean, like it's part of what he's sublimated. But we understand he's, in the end, he can speak, and Christopher certainly could, do the lines in German if that was part of the intention. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. We'll take this one first, and then to you. Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm always interested in the music in the films. It's about the third one I've seen, and I really enjoy it. I wanted to comment.
Sure. The question was about the music, and gentleman said this is the third film he's seen, and it would have definitely been the same composer. Michael Dana is the person who composes all my films, and it's a very important relationship because he, in the earlier films when a lot of the emotional issues were being held in reserve, the music was always anticipating and giving us entry. And in this film, because he's a bit like a puppet, the character, there's this jerky, syncopated quality to the music, which feels a bit like a puppet on a string. But it's a very important relationship I have with Michael Dana. And sir, your question next.
So going back to the shooting of State Troopers, I mean, it dawned on me after we realized he took two shots, one in the heart and one in the head.
It's called muscle memory. I mean, I think that's one of the moments when, sure. Look, I think that there's two moments where there's obvious muscle memory. I mean, the piano. He's playing the piano and he knows how to shoot that gun very well. So how did he know how to do that? And I think that is a big, question. There's also, when with the homosexual, when he's apologizing, like, well, what's he apologizing for? And so there's these moments that are blurry, but that one is very specific. There's no way he'd be able to get those two shots. Yeah, I think that it's you park that, right? You sort of like you park it and you go, well, how was he able to do that? But then it's resolved. Yes. Well, I have a whole theory about that, but it's something I talked about a lot with Christopher Plummer, and but it's not in the movie, and it's not something that you. My feeling is he must have had an intimate contact with a Jewish family in Berlin. That maybe that his piano teacher was Jewish. Maybe he fell in love with the daughter, and that at some point this family came through Auschwitz, and they must have confronted him, and at that point he just completely. Suppressed who he was. He disassociated himself. And when he comes to America and meets Ruth, he somehow over time enjoys his familiarity with this culture, with this new culture. He could easily say that he was an assimilated Jew in Berlin. There were many. And that he wasn't practicing, and so that he marries this Jewish woman in America and has all the excuses as to why he doesn't know the caddish, know why he doesn't, because he was assimilated. So I think over decades he's just absorbed that. I mean, he would have had to have, I mean, why else would he have this, you know, these numbers, like, you know, and it does raise the question of the last man, like what is he living under? And again, he might have been living under the illusion that he's an assimilated Jew who loves Germany. I mean, there's so many Bavarian, you know, references in that sort of fairy tale house he's living in. So, you know, these are very good questions. And I had to come up with a response. I mean, you know, like, but they're not in the movie. What's interesting about this film and what makes Christopher Plummer's performance so radical is that there is no subtext. You know, because of his dementia, everything is in the present. There's nothing else he's referring to, and so it's amazing that he pulls that off because it's compelling, but it's very unusual for an actor to have no subtext to play, and to carry so much history at the same time. It's Christopher Plummer, right? You know, yes. This will be our last question, I guess. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, the question is why he doesn't experience more trauma at shooting. I do think he feels this immediate trauma, but it might be about shooting the dog. You know, like, I mean, I think that that's what he feels like more distressed by, perhaps. There are these moments that are kind of beginning to. I mean, he's been in the presence of death, obviously, and that is obviously not as shocking as it might be to someone else. But these are the questions that you have to be raising as you're watching it, and then have the explanation at the end. So this, again, I'm traveling with this film because I love these Q&As, and I feel like they go on forever, but we don't have the time. There is a second screening, and the film is opening nationally on October 23rd, so please tell people about it, and thank you so much.